but also inspiring, and hopefully it gets you excited about what you can do with some of your paper-based content and how easy it is to move it across to an engaging online platform. Now, to give you a little bit of background, JobCo have been in business for 25 years. This is actually our 25th anniversary. Primarily, we started as a DES provider. And about 17 years ago, we started our RTO. So we've been around for quite some time. We're also an NDIS provider. And the regions that we operate, we're metropolitan Melbourne. We've got a number of sites in the northern suburbs, so Broadmeadows, Brunswick, Moonee Ponds, in that region. And we go all the way down through the city of Yarra, so in Fitzroy, and we've got St Kilda, Moorabbin, down the Bayside, down to Frankston, Dandenong, Pakenham, Box Hill. So we're all over Melbourne, servicing those clients. Now, when it comes to the courses that our RTO deliver, at the moment, it's primarily been the Certificate 3 and the Diploma in Early Childhood Education and Care. We also have some ACFE courses that we deliver, called Taking the Next Step, the Next Step and Taking the Next Step. And these are very focused on employability. In recent time, we have had a strong focus on engaging with industry to reverse engineer our ACFE programs. And the thinking behind that was we wanted to ensure that we're giving our participants the best chances of being able to gain employment opportunities. So, you know, in previous organisations that I've been at, you know, you get some smart people to get together and design a course with an intended outcome. And yeah, look, we had a little bit of success with that, but I found that, you know, having a look at some of the things that even the ACFE board have got, I think there's the 4 quadrants, and the fourth quadrant there, really focusing on the employment stuff. We've decided to engage industry, get a better understanding of their needs, some of the deficiencies or shortcomings they have with existing staff. We have a look at their recruitment process, and then the skills and attributes that they are looking for, you know, in prospective staff. And then we've gone and designed the program, and we've been quite successful in getting some outcomes for participants. Now, we've had a primary focus with the call centre space, inbound customer service, and there's some great jobs in that space. And you know, whilst we've been delivering our programs face-to-face in the classroom, which is quite often what happens in a call centre, when clients are successful in getting a job, they spend 3 to 4 weeks in a classroom going over computer systems, product, you know, some basic customer service stuff. So we replicated the on-the-job training environment. We replicated that in the room. But with COVID coming along, the need to move quickly and take that content and move it in the online platform, look, that was a bit beyond us and our internal capability. And you some of you would appreciate this being Learn Locals, the resources and how do you go about doing it, which is where we were very lucky to be pointed in the right direction, and Chris Enright and RTOLogic. So we've been collaborating for some time now to make this happen. And, you know, the ease with which they've been able to do this for us is just, you know, I mean, it's been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal. So, you know, I should probably throw over to Chris and let him take over.
Thanks, Ken. And thank you for the kind words. I think before we start, I just wanted to say that it's it's been a good little collaborative project because the end goal hasn't been, or the objective of the project hasn't been for us to necessarily build the content for JobCo in isolation. It's been for us to build the content in collaboration with them, and during that process, take them along that journey and improve their, or build their capabilities internally, so that they don't just sort of get someone else to do the work for them, but they actually go along that journey and learn how to use these systems themselves and build up that self-sufficiency. So that was really important for us, that when we took on this project, that staff were actively involved in the development and the use of the software, so that they could then turn around and perhaps start to build some of this stuff themselves with other programs. And quite often when you're venturing into uncharted waters, having someone who's done it before alongside you makes all the difference. And I wish we had an hour and a half to show you everything with respect to using authoring tools and building that content online, but unfortunately we've only got a short time. So I'm going to try and give you a speed version of building online content, probably maybe 10 minutes, because I really want to open up to the floor to answer questions as well, because there's quite a few people on the session now. And if I get momentarily distracted, it's because I'm trying to let people in to the session. I'm sorry. So what I might do is just run you through the authoring process, or the online content building process. And we use a particular piece of software called Articulate, which some of you are possibly familiar with already. There are hundreds of different software solutions out there, and there's not necessarily any one specific piece of software that you should use, whatever you're comfortable with. So for this example, they all do pretty similar stuff. So I'm going to show you how we would use Articulate to build out something very quickly. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I do apologize because I will be going through this pretty quickly, but we are recording the session as well for anyone. So hopefully everyone can see my screen with Articulate on the screen. And what I'm going to do is just create a new course. And I'm just going to call this the JobCo ACFE course. And what we did was, as Kim mentioned before, we reverse engineered. So we went in, or JobCo, I should say, went into industry and built some relationships in industry to really understand what it was they were looking for in a candidate, and what it was that, in terms of content, which would ideally want to be covered off in some kind of pre-employment program. And so what we did then was take the key points identified in that engagement and build them out as online lessons. So what we do here is we actually build out our framework. And so I can just build a lesson in the system. And for example, we created a lesson called time management, which was something that was identified as an important skill. And then we also identified that we needed to talk about handling customer complaints. So very simply, we're just going through and building out the framework for our program. Once we have that framework established, we then build the content for each individual lesson. And an authoring tool like this is fantastic because it's so simple to train staff how to use, and it is foolproof. So all we do is we just add blocks of content and start filling in the missing pieces. Importantly, when we're particularly if we're moving from a PDF document or a Word document into an online format, simply replicating the text as it appears in a document is not necessarily the most engaging way of presenting that information. And so we really encourage people to think about the visual aesthetics of the course as well, and putting in high quality images and activities that act as knowledge checks or formative assessments throughout that delivery material makes an enormous difference to the students' engagement levels. So just very quickly, I'm going to just put in a couple of examples here. So I'm going to create a heading, and I'm going to call this heading time management. And then I want to put a bit of text in here explaining that heading. So I'm going to add a text block. And I have pre-prepared some content on a different screen to make this a faster process. So you can see that I've just put some content in there. And then I've got a little sort of headliner that I would like to display in such a way that stands out. So I'm going to call this a statement. And I'm going to put my statement in there. So that's just something that stands out on the screen, and we'll have a look at the final product at the end of this so we can see what that looks like. But you get the idea here. We're just sort of slowly building out that content and trying to make this a little more engaging than perhaps reading through a PDF document, whether that's online or a printed document. What we can also do, because there is a concern amongst people when they move to an online platform that students don't actually engage in the content at all, and they just scroll down to the bottom, click through to the next lesson, scroll through, click, scroll and click. So what we do is we put content in there that forces the learner to engage, and they can't actually proceed to the next lesson or the next section until they have read or engaged or clicked on certain bits of information. So the way we do that is we have this continue button here, and we can actually put a piece of logic in this continue button that says you can't press this until you complete everything above it. And it sits like that and doesn't turn orange until the student has engaged in all of that content. And what we can do is we can make this a really visual piece of content. So we can put images in here, for example. We don't want an image of a combi van. So what we're going to do is grab this image here and then put a bit of text on the right-hand side. Okay, so something that just breaks up that text a little bit more. Okay, and I'm just going to do another example here where we might want to put a video into here. So embedding videos could be embedding videos that are publicly available on YouTube, or it could be some kind of pre-recorded session that one of your facilitators has pre-recorded on a camera on a Zoom session. Either way, if I take this example here, this is a 2-minute YouTube video on tips for effective time management. So if this was something that we thought was going to be of value to the learner, and we wanted to include this in our content, what we can do is when we go to a YouTube video, we can click on share and click on this embed button here. And there's a whole bunch of code on the right-hand side. And if we just copy that code and we come back into our authoring tool and click on multimedia, there's an embed option here. And then what we can do is just paste that code into that section there, and all of a sudden we've got that content sitting in our resources. And the benefit of embedding videos into those resources, whether it's publicly available or something that you've pre-recorded yourself, is that it doesn't redirect the student away from their platform. Kim made a point before about the simplicity of Zoom. And I think that's really important because a lot of our cohorts don't have a high degree of digital literacy or capability. And so we want to keep this process of engaging in content as simple as possible, because we are, for some cohorts, asking quite a lot of them to engage in an online platform. So being able to put content like this into the system without pushing them out to a different window here and a different window there makes an enormous difference to their engagement and motivation. As we're building this content, if we want to take a look at what it looks like, we can click this preview button up the top here. And this is really great because when we use a tool like this, it's what we call reactive. So it actually automatically adjusts the screen based on the device that the student is using. So again, talking about the accessibility point that Kim made, not everyone necessarily has a big desktop computer with big screens or a laptop. And over on the right here, you can see different types of devices. So this is a preview of what this content looks like on a computer. But then if we want to have a look at what this looks like on a tablet when in portrait mode, we can, or in landscape mode. And then also for our students who want to engage in this content, but they've only got a smartphone, we can see what that content looks like on a smartphone as well. So you can see that the content is reactive, so it changes based on the device that the student is using. And again, that's extremely important when we're talking about accessibility. Now, I could go on all day about how to build content in Articulate, but what I would like to do is take us across to the student experience to see what the final product looks like from the student's perspective. And I know Kim will have a bit to say about student support services or support mechanisms that JobCo has put in place to support their learners through this process. So I know that they've done some Zoom sessions where they've walked the students through how to access the portal and how to launch the content. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what I'm just going to, I don't know, Kim, if you want to say something about that.
Yeah, well, in terms of the support and the ease of you taking people through this, and particularly with Zoom, is that share screen functionality, so that the candidate, you know, the student is able to see it, and we can just walk them through. So in this instance, we've got a course. This is what the student will see, right, Chris?
Yeah, that's right. And I've just read the 2-minute warning from Simon as well. So I'm going to make this quick. This is the learner portal that the student would log into. I've just loaded this into our account, so there would be a JobCo logo there for the learners. And they can see that they're enrolled in this ACFE customer engagement program. And so if they click on that, and I haven't put an overview in here, but they would see an overview of that course. That could be some instructions on how to engage in the content. And if they click the launch learning button, it takes them to their full program. So you can see here on the left-hand side, they've got all of their different lessons that we've created as part of that program, and they can scroll through and engage in that content. So for example, we've put in a sorting activity here. So if you get it wrong, it'll do that. And you can see down the bottom here that they can't click through to the next lesson until they complete the, obviously I'm not a very good student. They can't move on to the next session until they complete every part of that section. And that's what we mean about putting in activities and knowledge checks and things to stop people from just doing the old scroll and click. Now I've switched off the settings so I can actually jump around to show you guys how this looks. This was the content that I was building before in that example. What is time management? And so this is the final sort of product for that particular lesson. Very short, little activities, very visual, lots of images. We've tried to make this as engaging as possible for the student. Just different ways of breaking down the content. You know, in the PDF version, this is just a dot point list. So we've got different ways of presenting that information. Now I know we're sort of heading into question time now. So probably the last thing I wanted to just mention was student engagement and tracking student engagement. Obviously, if you move online, there are going to be natural concerns about people's ability to stay engaged in that content and well supported. And so in our particular account, our student management system for JobCo, we can actually track the minutes and seconds that the student accesses that content. And we have built some reports that will actually flag when a student is disengaged. So when a student hasn't accessed the resource for 14 days or 7 days or whatever it might be. So we are keeping on top of that engagement and supporting learners through the back end reporting that we're able to do as part of that as well. I know I've run out of time. Kim, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, and very quickly, I think one of the most exciting parts about the reporting capability and for our clients, we're able to then provide them with real-time data in terms of how engaged a participant is with the program. So if we have a look at a classroom of say 10 or 12 students, and the employer wants to know, hey, exactly what, can you tell us a little bit more about the student? It's not just about them completing the course and giving the right answers. We're able to show them just how much that individual has engaged with the content. Are they really invested in the program? Do they really want to transition across into that employment opportunity? So the reporting functionality has been absolutely fantastic for us, and the clients love that. The clients really love that. And again, you could probably roll this out to JA providers and show them just how much the students or their clients are engaging, and even for the participant themselves. It gives our trainers, our facilitators, the ability to see that and I don't want to say get on top of the students that aren't engaging, but identify which students maybe need a little bit more support. So
thanks, Kim. We've got a number of questions here. Chris, are you able to read those questions and address some of those?
Absolutely. So just let me know, Simon, if I've missed any. Can we get a copy of the recording? Yes, it's being recorded. Is that going to be distributed by you, Simon?
If you send it to me, I'll distribute it around to the group.
Perfect. Sorry, I'm just having a little scroll through the chat there. Students do not need to use Zoom to access the lesson. They would access it through a student portal. The beauty of that piece of software, that authoring tool, is it doesn't restrict you to one LMS or one learning management system or one platform. It is a universal file source, so it is able to be embedded into numerous LMS and SMS products on the market. So you're not necessarily restricted to the platforms that, say, JobCo is using. And if anyone wants additional information about whether or not it's going to work with their platforms, I'm happy to address those questions too. Is this only for self-led participation of students? Can we design it to use during a Zoom session? I suppose at the end of the day, you could, if that question is sort of thinking along the thinking that you could use it in replacement of a PowerPoint presentation or something like that, then possibly what you could do is potentially start, and this is what JobCo did, they started a Zoom session and walked the students through how to access that content themselves. And then what it does is it allows them to have a reference point for later on. So for example, if we talk about post-COVID or post-restrictions in Victoria, and we're reverting back to some face-to-face and blended stuff, people can still engage in a face-to-face delivery model, but then they've got this additional resource that they can go back to at night when they want to consolidate that learning. So it is available post-course too. So when the participant completes the program, they still have ongoing access to the resource. So even if they go and get a job, they can still come back to it and reference it if they like.
Do students from Narelle, do students need an email account to access, or do they just go to the web address just like you have demonstrated? And also, what's the cost of Articulate?
Yeah, so Articulate's the authoring tool, and then we've used the student management to host it. Students will need an email address to create a login, because the login will go to their email address. Now, worst case, if a student says, look, I just don't have an email address, then there is a workaround. You can just put your own email address in, generate the account, and then give them the password, basically. So there is a way around that if students don't have an email address. Cost of Articulate would depend on how many licenses you wanted. For example, off the top of my head, Articulate costs $2,000 per license. So that's per login. So I'd recommend, if this is something that you're interested in, they do have a 60-day free trial. So sign up to the free trial, start building something and see if it's going to work for you. So there's a great try before you buy model there to reduce that risk, but it is a $2,000 investment across the year.
Now, we've only got a few minutes to go. We'll go through a couple more questions, and then if we can just ensure that we're on mute as well, that would be great. Is this reporting tracking just in Articulate?
The reporting tracking that I showed you before was actually from the student management system that JobCo is using. So JobCo is using a system called Accelerate, and you basically take those files from Articulate, you export them, you upload them to your platform, whatever platform you're using, and the platform should show you that tracking log. So again, I'm happy to address specific systems with people post this session if they like.
Okay. And I think that's answered a couple of those questions. Also, can the student flag any difficulties with the teacher or have forum capability?
Yeah, so the way that this, so not with the Articulate file, that gets loaded into the platform, but in the particular system that JobCo is using, there is the ability in the learner portal to access the teacher email, and they can communicate with the teacher directly. And that particular platform is also releasing a trainer discussion feature, like a messenger chat, where they can submit questions.
Let's say we've got one license, can only be accessed by one person. Is that correct?
It can be accessed by multiple people, provided they're not logging in at the same time. So what we recommend is if an organisation is taking this on at a larger scale, that they start up with one login and they just share it around. So one person can use it on a Monday and someone else can use it on a Tuesday. I think given the cost associated with it, you would probably want to restrict that to one license if you could.
Yep. And does Articulate itself let you track, let you track the students?
No, because it's just an authoring tool and then you're loading that into your platform. So think of it in much the same concept as taking a PDF document and loading that into a resource library on your learning management system or student management system. Students would download the PDF and access that. It's very much the same sort of concept here. So Articulate is just purely used for the building or authoring process. And there's a question there about how to contact me if you want to ask about specific system requirements. I'll just put an email address in there if that's okay, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that people might have.
Simon, if I could just quickly, what I'm hoping that the team are able to have seen today is just how easy it is to be able to go and create that engaging content. So what we had was a whole lot of paper-based content. We've got it all there, in our systems, and we've got it in PDF files, but being able to add those, great images, embed the video, you've already got your content. It's just a matter of cut and pasting it out of the Word document and placing it in there. And the more you play with it, the more engaging you can make your content. It's been fantastic for us. It really, really has been.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kim, and thanks, Chris. Look, we're going to have to wrap this up because we've got other sessions coming up. What we might do is share your contact details so people can follow up some of those questions.
Sure.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your attendance. We've also got some great sessions coming up, and another one coming up at several coming up at 12:50. So thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Simon.